In this podcast episode, we are going to talk about ARM CPUs. We're going to talk about their roots related to the legendary 6502. As some of our viewers might already know, we recently did a 6502 episode that was very popular, more than 100,000 views, for which we are very grateful. The story of 6502 is described in that video. We're going to link it in the description as well. Basically, it starts in the late 70s. And if you fast forward to 1980s, the team at Acorn Computers, led by a couple of people like Sophie Wilson and Steve Ferber, they set out to create a new processor architecture. And the ARM processors kind of inherited some of the 6502's design philosophy, embracing RISC as a design criteria. Having that in mind, RISC, CISC, let's say differences are going to be a topic of one of the future episodes. We don't need to go very deeply into that today. But basically what they did is by focusing on more of a, let's say, streamlined instruction set, and by optimizing for performance and power efficiency at the same time, they created CPUs that have the lineage to the ARM processors of today, which offers significant leap forward in terms of computing capabilities per watt. So, with that being said, welcome to That IT Show, where talk meets tech, and vice versa. Let's roll the intro.
Okay.
What's up? You are the ARM man.
So, what are you going to start with?
We're going to basically continue with what we were talking about in 6502, act as if we already talked about that story almost fully, and then just switch towards what happened afterwards, after that episode was done.
Okay, so let's start with BBC Micro.
Okay, that sounds actually reasonable.
Because BBC Micro is probably as the same thing as Minix in the last episode.
Did you have one, perhaps?
Which one?
BBC Micro.
No, not yet.
What was your first ARM, by the way, based computing device? I was thinking about this for hours today. I know which one is mine.
I have absolutely no idea.
Nokia 6110.
Could be, but I have absolutely no idea. I need to think about it because this is just out of the blue. I have absolutely no idea which Nokia phone was the first one that was ARM based.
I think it was 6110.
No, but for me.
Oh,
for me. So I need to do the Venn diagram of all the phones the Nokia did and all the phones that I used, and then see what was the first one.
That was awesome. Venn diagram. Please don't.
So
for the love of everything that's holy, don't.
So, anyways, let's talk about Acorn, and let's talk about BBC Micro, and let's talk about how ARM first was used more or less to create the school computer. Mm-hmm. Because BBC had something called computer literacy program or digital literacy project. Mm-hmm. And the idea was to create a home computer, and more or less everybody in the 80s tried doing that. Here we had Galaxia, we had Aura, we had Galeb, we had Evel, we had a lot of Z80 or 602 based computers. Mm-hmm. BBC went the other way, or more precisely, UK went the other way. Mm-hmm. They had Spectrums, they have, among others, BBCs. And BBCs was basically repatched or rebranded Acorns. Okay. Then there was something called the Acorn Archimedes, and this was the actual ARM-based computer that was first tangible thing that the ARM Corporation did.
Okay.
And this was probably the start of it all. And what is actually, from my perspective, when I think about ARM, what is actually the most surprising bit is that ARM never went out of the spotlight, but nobody was actually looking at in their direction.
There's a reason for that.
Yes, because they are not the celebrity corporation from the United States.
You would think that's that.
I think this is one of the most important
They are not
reasons.
Instagram based.
No. They're just not trying to be flashy. They know what they're doing. They have the knowledge. They have the IP, and they are able to deploy the IP and sell it to people who actually need embedded devices. And then after that, low-powered devices. Okay, compared to today's Intel devices, everything is low-powered. But selling low-powered devices, so they got their start with in the educational market. They were able to continue onwards, just growing, developing, and selling IP to other people. And this is something that I don't know a lot of companies that did it this way.
I think that there are a couple of more reasons.
Okay.
At that particular point in time when ARM as an idea was born, the computer industry was much more heterogeneous than what it is today.
Absolutely.
The industry was kind of in the midst of finding its own footing in multiple different ways. It was basically the start of the CESC versus RISC. It was also let's say much more. How should I put this? It was way different in terms of the architectures because there were many architectures. The Intel wasn't there as the market leader back then.
There wasn't a market leader.
Yeah, it was much more spread out, and as a result of that, capable people at Acorn, they were actually looking for some kind of a platform that they could use for their desktop computer and microcomputers. They kind of stumbled partially upon the idea of creating a new CPU out of necessity, but the way in which everything around them was structured at that time was vastly different. We need to acknowledge that. Today, this would be impossible to do.
Yes, but also the amount of knowledge required for market entry was much smaller. Basically, you could get away with a small team of a couple of people and create your own processor. This was another way of. This was basically democracy in the Silicon. I would say Silicon Valley, but in development of silicon.
Okay.
Because given enough money, guys like you and me could start a company and create our own processor. The biggest difference was creating a processor that was actually viable, and the processor that has its own, I wouldn't say market share, but its own point, the position in the market. So creating a processor that was actually able to do something. You couldn't just create a general purpose processor and say, okay, just I create the processor, the way that people do it today.
There is a very popular saying that comes back from that era, which is something along the lines of that in the future, there are going to be only two types of companies. The first type is going to be the companies that learn to design the silicon, and the others that went bust.
Probably yes, because but I wouldn't call it design. Learn to
design on silicon, for example. Let's call it that way.
Yes, I would call it more of a redesign. Because I'm fully expecting that AI is going to be playing a major role in redesign of a lot of silicon on the market today. It already has a lot of play in the redesign of all the silicon on the market today, but I see that the role is going to be even bigger. So that the teams will probably going to get smaller. And this means that you're going to get a lot of agile teams that are going to be able to redesign everything. And having ARM on the market and having their own idea of selling you the IP and then helping you design your own chip is something that is going to create even more competition on the market. And this is fun for me.
Always good.
Because let's skip all history and let's talk about today. M1,
we're going to
M2.
talk about a couple of pieces.
Yes, but I just wanted to skip over and then we're going to go back to the history. But M1, M2, M3.
Non-existent M3.
Okay,
soon to be.
It exists. It exists. It's just waiting to be manufactured. Project Volterra, Microsoft's. Basically, the entire Android ecosystem, the entire iPhone ecosystem. It's all ARM. So you have the silicon out there, you have the solutions out there, and right now, I wouldn't want to be Intel.
I agree.
And I wouldn't want to be AMD either,
Agreed.
because they have come to a point where they are creating amazing technology that is completely stuck in a dead end, and they need to quickly redesign what they are trying to do.
Why do you think that is?
Mainly because they are aiming for the general purpose market. They are still aiming for the general purpose market.
You think that the computing market is going back to specialization?
Yes,
in a sense? Okay.
yes. You need to have, take a look at what Apple has. Ignore M cores, A cores, S cores, Q cores, P cores, and so on. They have different cores for iPhones, different cores for iPads, different cores for MacBooks, different cores for iWatches, and so on and so on and so on. They even have different ARM cores designed just for the headphones. So Apple iPods have a processor in each headphone. So they are just separate computing devices, however you call it. So having a specialized core and having a specialized part of silicon that you can combine with other things, and this is what ARM has been doing for the last 20 years or so, is something that is going to drive the market on. And AMD and Intel are stuck in the general purpose CPU market right now. They're trying to get away, but their idea of getting away is a problem.
We have to talk about those things as well, maybe as a separate episode.
Yes, but not today. Not today.
I would argue that that AMD already tried to go into that direction heavily in the past. If you remember, I think it was called Skybridge. They bought a company that they wanted to basically create heterogeneous chips that includes x86 and ARM cores on the same silicon, but that went bust, if I remember correctly. So they already tried to go there, maybe even to kind of like participate in this future that's coming after them in a sense, but that wasn't all that successful. Intel, on the other hand, has bought heavily into RISC-V in the past couple of years. So that's also one potential path to the future.
We are going to see, but let's go back now. Let's go back to the history and let's go back to the past of the ARM, and let's start talking about what ARM actually is. Because sometimes people don't understand what Acorn or ARM Corporation, or what do they sell. People don't understand that they don't actually sell CPUs. Yeah. They don't even manufacture CPUs.
Correct.
You cannot buy an ARM
CPU
from ARM.
You can fabulous.
Yes, you can go to ARM. You can say, I want a CPU. I have this specification, whatever. They're going to go and give you IP, so intellectual property designed chip. And then they're going to help you redesign your own idea into the silicon so that
RISC-V has very similar approach.
Yes, okay. But the ARM is the successful one.
At least so far, yes, I would absolutely agree with you. But going back to our 6502 episode,
okay.
Do you remember that I asked you for a bit of trivia there?
No.
6502, a famous cartoon, Bender.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There is a little bit of a trivia related to the first ARM CPU as well. Do you know which one?
No.
When they tried to test it, they forgot to power it on. And it was being, as a low voltage, low wattage chip, it was basically being powered from, not from the power inputs, but from basically the signal inputs. It was still working
basically from
thin air, in a sense.
From the measuring device.
Equipment, yes.
Yes, okay. Okay.
I read that and I was like, that's really fascinating how low power that chip is then. By design.
Yes, because if you take a look at, can you throw graphics in on the transistor density of the CPUs? If you take a look at the transistor density, and you know the graph that I'm referring to because we have it in a lot of the lectures, you can see that the ARM, for a long time, ARM was riding along on the way of not trying to cram too many transistors into the CPU. And they were able to be successful, although they were more or less an order or two orders of magnitude smaller based on transistor count than the other CISC brethren. So this was completely, I wouldn't say not normal way of doing things, but at the same time, it was obviously successful.
The first chip had 25,000 transistors.
Yes,
which
yes,
is
yes.
not
But
an
but
awful lot.
everybody had something around 20,000 resistance. But later, AMD didn't push for the transistor count. They were pushing for they were trying to develop a chip that is going to be smaller. I don't
Not
really
AMD,
know.
ARM.
ARM, sorry. I don't know if the idea was the ARM to be smaller because they couldn't create a better chip.
No, there was another reason. It's very easy to understand.
Yes.
So apart from the fact that it's a design criteria, we talk about that
Okay.
a lot on computer architecture. There was another design criteria which was exceptionally important for people who were designing the CPU, and that was related to packaging.
Okay.
Because they wanted to package it in plastic, not in ceramic chip.
Okay.
And the difference in price between those two is basically 2 orders of magnitude. Like a small percent, let's say a fraction of a tenth of a cent. That's how much it costs to package a chip in plastic versus a couple of tens of dollars in ceramic. That's one of the reasons.
Yes, because but the entire process is then different and everything else is different.
But it's a major reason why they went in the direction of low wattage, because the plastic as a heat spreader or whatever you want to call it, as
Sucks.
a medium,
Basically sucks.
it can handle 1 watt or 2 watts. I heard some information about, let's say, in the current state of technology, plastic chips can dissipate something like 2 watts. But that's
I know that you can cheat. You can put a piece of ceramics in the plastic and then heat spread it over the
but
entire
back then
chip.
that was not available.
But back then it wasn't needed.
Yeah.
Because the idea of having a chip that is going to be a couple of watts was something that actually was doable.
Mm-hmm.
Today, if your design criteria is 2 watts of TDP, you are going to have a tough time to fit everything on the chip.
Can I go on a tangent for a second?
Of course, you're going to do.
You basically said a couple of minutes ago that this is a very interesting topic for you.
Yes.
Can you understand now why I wanted us to do computer architecture?
No.
Exactly.
I have absolutely no idea why.
Exactly because of that, yeah.
Yes, but for me, the start of the processor architecture and the computer architecture as such, so the late 60s, start of the 70s, maybe start of the 80s, so those 15 years or so were not only the time where people were developing new technologies, but also they didn't have the time to standardize them. They just created technology, pushed it out of the door, kept on creating, kept on designing, and so on.
And it worked.
This was the other thing, and the thing that the market was expecting was anything. They didn't had a predetermined idea of what do they want. So you could get away with different UIs, different processors, different architectures. You could start from scratch if you wanted to. You just needed to make your own market share, and you needed to create your own, I would say, group of developers that is going to follow you in your own new architecture, and then create software for you. This was the thing that was actually interesting for people.
Have you ever heard of a company back then in 70s and 80s and 60s doing what we call a respin of a chip or 2 or 3?
6502 is probably fits in this market, because they did but it was not a respin. It was.
You understand my point?
Yes, it was basically not
Different versions of the
not a
chips.
complete redesign. It was redesigned in order to accommodate a few things that people needed, but the redesign was not complete.
Yes, and that's so my point is that the chips and the way in which they were designed back then was much more of a thought out process than at times today.
This is one thing, or one could say that designing a chip back way then was not so thought out, but you had to do it. So you just packaged something, learned on the mistakes, created another chip, and that was it.
Yeah, but the learning process back then was probably much more exponential than what it is today. The law of diminishing returns.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, the naming conventions.
Yeah.
The naming conventions for the interrupts, the naming conventions for RQs or whatever they call them, come from different chips. There was no naming convention for a lot of things, so they needed to create something. The most amazing thing for me is that word is not a word. Word is not 8 bytes or 16 bytes or whatever bytes people claim it to be.
It is.
It is what it is, based on the chip that you are. They're trying to standardize it now, based on the architecture and primarily on the based on the language that you use. But back way then, a word was whatever 13 bytes if you had a chip
designed that way. Yeah, that can back it up. Okay.
So this was another way of thinking, and this was another environment to work in, and let's see how ARM fit into this environment. So they started with computers and systems, not computers, systems designed for education. Their own start was Archimedes. Their own start was processor, because they created those processors and they were manufacturing them back then. And then go on with the story.
Digital assistants, embedded systems.
Okay, it was the future that people from Europe probably know from different British-based and French-based documentaries and the series. Bright Future, Future Now, whatever, Future Connections, whatever they were called. And those TV programs were promising whole new ideas, whole new computers, ideas of doing things. A few of them kept actually appeared. A lot of them were just basically whatever was thought out in the studio and fit the bill to be filmed that day. But I will say that this was a much more interesting time to be alive while designing the technology.
Agreed.
Because steering technology right now is like steering an oil tanker. You cannot create quick changes. What you can do is you can try to change the course of whatever you're doing, and then wait for a couple of years to see what is going to happen.
Okay. And then all the way through the 80s came, let's say, the end of the 80s and beginning of the 90s, when they were spun off as a separate business unit.
Okay.
That was what we nowadays call ARM, Advanced Risk Machines. And that was spun off because Acorn realized they realized on a corporate level that that's the way to do it. And actually, it was a very good conclusion that they kind of came to, because Acorn went bust, in a sense, and ARM is still alive today, 40 years afterwards. Basically, that's a major, major difference, and you can see the forethought and how much more thoughtful people were back then in terms of spinning off their businesses and creating an environment in which one business unit doesn't have to necessarily depend on the other, etc. It was way different back then.
But as we said, especially in the UK market, you could do a lot of things quickly. New technologies, new products could be developed from zero to the market in a matter of probably a few months. There is
tape out of the CPUs was something that took a couple of months, but yeah, you could have done it in, let's say, 4 or 5 months or something.
Yes, basically
like that,
the same time it takes to prepare the PR campaign for a product today.
Yeah.
So
for a good PR agency.
Yes. So this is another time. So okay, let's walk people through what ARM did, because they first started working with Apple.
1993. Apple Newton.
I think that it was as they spun off from the Acorn, and when they got to the stock exchange. So when they were incorporated on the stock market, I think this was the time when they had
they got investments from multiple companies.
Yes, because they were interesting, and the interested parties usually wanted to create their own silicon. I think that Apple is probably one of the wisest companies out there, because they were willing to bet on creating both the hardware and the software. Okay, sometimes it made sense, sometimes it didn't, but
I'd say that their bets were mostly cashed in a positive way.
yes,
for
their
them.
bets. Okay,
Hugely.
they ran into a few problems along the way. They created complete lines of computers that didn't work, but as a net result, we see where Apple is today. So
Yeah.
their bets usually paid off.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So they
completely.
start with the. I'm taking a look at the Wikipedia article because I'm lazy. I just wanted to. No, I just wanted to get
And how does that make you feel?
lazy. Basically, I just wanted to not make a mistake, and I was trying to remember what the primary licensees were, because I know that DEC was using
Yes.
DEC was using an ARM.
They had a whole lineage of RISC CPUs back then. Yeah.
Yes, and then they were trying to develop different things. They were trying to develop ARM processors, basically up till to the end of the 90s, 1999, and then they switched over to a new line of processors, and this is probably start of the 2000s and the end of the 1990s is where the ARM really got off.
Yeah, really took off. I agree.
Yes, because they then they started creating mobile phones and small devices.
But it was the right time. It was the like confluence of multiple different things that led to that. They were positioned well on the market from the perspective of low power usage in their designs, which they were smart about. And the market was moving towards that direction, and the popularity of internet and mobile phones, all of that kind of like, in a sense that all of that combined created the situation and the ecosystem that we have today.
Yes, okay, but I need to just point out that whatever we are talking about here is usually survivor's bias. We are talking about companies that made it.
Yeah.
So, yes, the ARM was the company that made it because they were in the right place at the right time. We don't remember the companies that weren't at the right place at the right time.
Yes, we do.
Let me just go on a tangent back there. Beginning of the 2000s, there was a mobile phone called Sidekick. That was probably because, for some reason or the other, I like my mobile phones with a keyboard. It was BlackBerry before the BlackBerry.
I liked it already.
The idea of it was okay, and it was all the craze in the States for a limited time, and then basically I don't know what happened to them. They just went under for some reason or the other. Sidekick was a fun phone.
Yeah, I'm going to put it in the picture. So
yes,
that
okay.
others can see it.
But my tangent is we don't remember the losers. We remember
We remember
the
the Nokia. We remember Motorola.
No,
We
Nokia was
remember Intel's tries.
no, Nokia was not the loser. Nokia was just somebody
How wasn't it?
they just married the wrong company.
No, I'm not trying to diss on them. I use their phones religiously to tell the.
I think that there is a lot of similarities between what happened to Twitter and what happened to Nokia.
Or Nokia and some other companies, yes.
Yes,
But
basically the stock market said, okay, we can cash in on the craze right now, being it Elon Musk or Microsoft, whatever. Just sell the company, everything is going to be okay. And then the company went bust.
I love the way in which you oversimplify it and under-exaggerate everything.
Yes, but as the Elon says, let that sink in. The idea is that a lot of companies, especially the companies that are only looking for stock going up, taking care of all the stockholders and so on,
Shareholders.
shareholders or stockholders, to be more precise, because I don't care about shares. Sometimes they're just caring about who has the actual stock, the voting stock. Sometimes they end up like BlackBerry or Nokia or companies
So we
like this.
remember the losers.
Yes, we remember the losers, but Nokia was not the loser.
BlackBerry definitely was.
BlackBerry was the loser because
I'm very sad about that.
Yes, but I think that we should do a complete episode on BlackBerry.
No problem. I have all of them that were popular back then. At least 4 or 5 devices different.
I think I have at least 6 of them. But
awesome.
the problem with BlackBerry was that they consistently made wrong calls on everything that they decided on.
No, I think that they made all of the right calls that they considered to be the right calls, which was not what the market wanted.
Yes, so basically they made completely wrong calls on everything that they were trying to decide on.
Potato, potato.
Yeah, so okay, let's go back to the ARM.
Okay.
Because ARM was more or less behind everything that Nokia did. ARM was behind everything that general purpose mobile phone market did.
A lot of other devices as well.
TVs,
Unlimited amount of devices.
yes, unlimited amount of devices, down to traffic lights.
Yes.
So all the TVs, all the smart devices, all the not so smart devices,
Bluetooth
headphones.
routers, switches, whatever.
Yes, I think that the only company that I know that probably has more devices, or the companies that have more devices on their side are the companies that are dealing with microprocessors. So PIC and whatever, PICs and Motorola's of the world that create their own microprocessors, but they are lagging behind ARM right now because ARM has more or less the solution for everything. And they had a solution for everything besides the normal desktop up until now.
Well, let's talk about ARM being a solution for everything at the end of the episode. If it's
Okay.
not a problem, I do have a couple of questions that I want to ask you to see where you stand. Okay, so the 60, yeah, it was 6110. It was a super successful phone, ARM 7 based, and I don't know how many they sold, but it was back then. Nokia was the king of the hill,
Yes.
by a country mile. So that was what it is. And by basically, if we take the timeline approach, and if we go to 1997, this is directly from ARM's webpage, by the way. They've grown to basically create a very, very lucrative private business with income. They started generating positive income. That's good. And they also considered at that particular time to float the company on the stock market, which you mentioned. So that was in 1998, somewhere in the spring of 1998. They went to London Stock Exchange and Nasdaq and whatnot. But as you alluded before, and I think that's the most fundamental part of the story. The story of ARM is not the story of necessarily producing chips. It is about producing partnerships.
Yes, because I just looked up because I wasn't sure. Nokia 6110 was the ARM was produced by Texas Instruments. So this is another partnership that they made.
Yes.
And this is what makes ARM so strong.
They have a partner ecosystem that is probably unrivaled right
Yes, and the other thing is that they can work with a lot of companies creating a lot of different things, and they're able to provide for the companies that they're working with and still make them feel special. And this is something that is hard to explain to people who are outside of this market. It's tough to be able to sell to competitors in the market the same thing, repackage it so that all the competitors feel happy and get the money from everybody who's on the market. Not
they're
only.
smart about that.
Yes.
Then they started the migration towards a little bit more, let's say, current day technology, synthesizable cores and whatnot. In 2005, they created the Cortex cores. ARM9, ARM11 families came after that and all of that. And in 2008 was one of the biggest milestones in the history of ARM, which is when they started switching to multi-core.
Yes.
Hugely important because the smartphone market back then was really something that was growing like crazy. It still is to this very day. And the way in which performance was achieved is the same story as Intel and AMD went through some years ago before that. It wasn't all that long ago, but the same story with Intel and AMD started 2005, 2006, 2004, depending on which CPUs we are talking. So they started with the idea of big little back then as well. And that's the, let's say, in the acronym world, big little would be something that we could describe by using, let's say, metaphors of Intel's P&E cores and many other things like that on the market. Although the idea of these bigger cores that are good for serial stuff and smaller cores that are good for parallel stuff, which is where the design of CPU is today, right now as we speak about it, this is not only not new, this is decades old.
Yes, but
Even the old IBM Power CPUs and the older supercomputers back from 60s and 70s had the same approach to achieving performance.
But the other thing is that they managed to do the seamless integration of different chips for different
Market segments, etc.
market segments, but different functions. They enable you to seamlessly integrate Bluetooth, wireless, 5G, 4G, 3G, and so on, in such a way that you, as a manufacturer, could more or less go buy a chip and create a mobile phone around it in a couple of months without unnecessary time waste. And by unnecessary, I usually mean redesigning parts of the chip, redesigning parts of the technology or the motherboards and so on. So they enabled manufacturers to create cheaper mobile phones. They also enabled Apple and all the other people to create premium mobile phones. And this is their strength. They're just giving you the ingredients to create a dish. It's up to you to create a dish.
Okay, and spice it up with whatever you want.
Yes.
That's exceptionally important for where they are today and what's going to happen in the future for them as well. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so after all of that, we had a short discussion about the partnership model. We talked a little bit about the way in which the ecosystem of ARM partners nowadays, I think I read a number, more than 1,000 companies are a part of their partner ecosystem, which, I mean, it speaks for itself. That means that there are like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies producing, let's say, a system on a chip type of designs based on the ARM cores, which is definitely unrivaled right now.
I would just go with if I see that somebody is producing a chip, and if I see that this chip is going to be a risk, I'm going to assume it's going to be an ARM.
Because there are no other overtly risk CPUs right now on the market. We're not talking about the underpinnings and something that happens inside. That's a topic for another day, because what people think are CISC CPUs today are not necessarily just CISC CPUs like Intel and AMD. But
and even them are trying to become a risk, if at all possible.
And there are so many topics to cover there, but that's going to be something for some of the next episodes and multiple ones, because it's undoable in one of them, because the wealth of information that exists about this is enormous, and over the years the accumulation of all of the information also means that we have to filter it out and put it in some kind of a, let's say, consistent episode. So
okay.
I don't want to go there today, but it is what it is. I read a piece of information, I think yesterday, something like there are 22 million ARM cores entering the market every day.
I remember that there was an information about currently something like 180 billion ARM cores running currently in the world. But these are the numbers that make no sense.
Yeah.
I know that around us, first and foremost, in your mobile phone, you have probably 15 of them. Around us right now in this room is probably 50 or 60 of them. Inside every TV, every camera, every even on the actual Intel based laptops.
For a variety of subsystems.
For a variety of subsystems, mobile phones, air conditioners, whatever. So ARM is almost everywhere. And the only thing that we need to talk about is their arrival on the desktop market or on the laptop market.
I agree. For the desktop story to be told, and actually we are going to go and discuss some other parts of the market, various different types of designs. We have to talk about the NVIDIA ARM story as well. NVIDIA tried to buy ARM. They started the proceedings, I think, at the end of 2020 or something like that. They wanted to buy that from SoftBank, which mostly owned ARM. They offered something like $40 billion in cash, stocks, combination thereof, whatever. But the problem is that the deal was rejected. NVIDIA wasn't able to buy them. And there are a couple of ideas floating around that they're going to go public and IPO and I don't know, whatever is going to happen. when that happened in 2020, my first initial impulse was, and I'm being brutally honest here, so I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is NVIDIA's way of trying to make sure that they finish Intel and bury them. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yes, but
And I'm not saying that I like that. I'm just saying that as a fact.
this is one of those things that in today's market, I had a discussion a couple of days ago with a student of ours, and I was trying to explain how licensing works in today's market. There
You should
is
have directed the guy to watch our episode.
yes, but the only thing that I don't understand is how is this market even feasible? Because everybody has something licensed from everybody else. Huge lumps of cash are changing hands every month based on units sold. So I think like let's buy this company in order to make other companies' life a living nightmare is something that is used normal on the stock market. Normal, yes. And the
I think we both disagree with this idea in general.
yes.
Principle, but
In
it is
general
what it
principle,
is.
this is the stupidest idea possible.
It is
But
very bad for everybody.
yes, but right now, some of the companies or some of the brands that we know wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for the arrangements like this. For example, Firefox wouldn't exist if the Google wouldn't be able to pay them whatever hundreds of millions of dollars to make the default search engine Google. So this is something that is both normal on the market, stock market, and something that is just part of the capitalism. So, okay, NVIDIA tried to buy ARM, but at the same time, a lot of regulatory problems became out of it. And I think that from ARM's perspective, this wouldn't make too much sense. Because they were in the
But they weren't in a position to make the decision because they were owned by a bank who wanted to sell it. So they weren't even like a thought in the process.
Okay, but I think that I just read the press release that was announcing the end of the discussion about NVIDIA buying ARM.
They're still going to probably spin off parts of that company, and it's still going to be sold like via public offering or IPO or I don't know what combination thereof. I'm not into financial markets, don't care. But
I think that nobody right now, because ARM is right now basically neck deep in the market. They are dealing the IP or the cores or the designs for new chips for practically everybody, up to and probably including Intel. I wouldn't be surprised that Intel is buying a little bit of ARM technology on the side.
Could be completely normal.
So I don't see them trying to cash in and trying to be a player that is going to be dedicated to just one brand. So NVIDIA being NVIDIA, Apple being Apple, I don't think that they are going to sell themselves. And I don't think that the bank that owns them is going to sell them.
You understand where I was going?
Yes.
I think that NVIDIA saw the writing on the wall. They wanted to go into the, let's say, not necessarily system on a chip market. They were already there. They already had many designs from Tegra onwards. But they kind of decided that they needed a CPU, let's say, as a platform so that they can build their products on top of that and then create their own system designs. That's why they bought Mellanox and many other companies as well. And the way in which we went about it was to basically go after the only available, let's say, CPU. I wouldn't say manufacturer because they're not a manufacturer, they're a platform. So CPU platform that was available out there because RISC-V ain't going to be sold anytime soon if they are to be asked. And NVIDIA surely cannot buy Intel or AMD. That much is obvious. I don't know how much all of that has to do with American politics in terms of them wanting to control the instruction sets, which sounds completely reasonable from their perspective as well. But I was surprised when that deal fell through. I think it fell through because of the regulatory complaints in US.
Probably yes. And the other thing is that
which was weird.
The other thing that is weird is that both ARM and NVIDIA said that they are continuing their relationship and so on and so on and so on. But
Hence, what's happening these days with the Grasshopper and
Yeah,
many other designs that we.
Grace and Hopper, yes. But the thing that was actually strange to me is that under the deal and when everything was fell through, Nvidia was in the red with something like 1.2 billion dollars prepaid for the ARM. So they basically lost the money, a lot of money, and nobody blinked. This means that this deal was a strategic deal that everybody understood that is not going to happen, and nobody was paying any attention to it. And
Interesting.
the other thing is that Grace and Hopper, so the different technologies that NVIDIA, Grace is the interesting one, the ARM9 based processor. But they came on the market a couple of weeks ago. That was heavily being developed back way then when they were doing this transaction.
Merger idea.
Yes, so this transaction was going on in parallel with the Grace design or the design of the new ARM chip for NVIDIA. And I think that this NVIDIA chip is going to make a big deal.
I absolutely agree with you. NVIDIA is kicking some serious ass in a lot of the markets and making a boo-boo in many others.
I'm just wondering why is right now ARM not getting the market share they deserve on the laptop and on the desktop market. What is happening and why is Microsoft keeping back and trying not to anger Intel? I strongly suspect that there is some deal, back end deal or backhand deal between Microsoft and Intel that Microsoft is just. They have all the cards prepared. Everything is in place. They have Windows on ARM. They have Visual Code, Visual Studio, C++ code. You are able to completely compile .NET 6, .NET 7. I checked. So there is no reason. They have Project Volterra.
Yeah, that was the fish and the hook thing.
Yes, so they have the entire ecosystem prepared. They are already able to cross-execute x86 code on the ARM processors. They are able to.
Apple showed that to be working perfectly well.
Yes, there is ARM 64 EC, I think. So basically, emulation code or emulated code that is able to both cross-execute code from x64 and also. Natively execute parts of the code that are already recompiled and reuse this instead of the x86 code.
I think that our very near future might involve a lot of recompiling.
Yes,
not our personal, but for the companies that produce software
right
for
now,
the market.
I don't see for a normal company. I don't know Office, Windows, Internet. That's it. I see no reason why not switch today. The only reason is that we don't have the hardware right now on the market, or the hardware is too expensive.
You know what? I have one more input into this.
Yes.
You may disagree with this. You might disagree with this, but I do have some experience with this. I've been using Android tablets for quite a while. I started with some first earlier versions of Android tablets, which came back in the day. Then I also got the Asia's Transformer Prime or whatever it's called with NVIDIA Tegra.
Yes.
And I have a couple of others. And we joked about never giving away
Yes.
We strongly actually agree on that you were never going to give an Android tablet like a second-hand thing to anybody that you like or want to stay friends with. And I'm completely with you on that. The user experience of using those tablets so far is very fresh in my memory, and it sucked.
Okay, but let's not confuse the user experience of the Android and the ARM architecture, because iPad is also an ARM architecture.
Okay.
So I don't see a problem there.
I do, because iPad it works as a tablet and Android doesn't.
Yes, but this is the user experience and the optimization of the operating system thing. It's
but
not
the user experience sells.
Yes, I know.
On desktop.
But I don't see anybody. I don't have the problem on desktop because Windows exists. I just
I
need.
think Windows 3.1, Windows 95, and many others elegantly prove that the user experience is the king. on
Yes, but
desktop.
Windows 11 exists for the ARM. Windows 10 exists for the ARM. So
And
you
nobody
can
uses it.
nobody uses because there is no hardware on the desktop.
Okay.
Uh,
There are
the
many different laptop designs on ARM.
Yes, but can you name one that is successful?
There was a Samsung one which I really liked.
Okay,
Actually, but
MacBook Air, but other than MacBook.
no. Please no.
Okay.
No, I don't think that. I read articles about Windows for ARM not working on Apple's devices, so let's not go there.
We'll
I'm
see.
not sure. Maybe I'm not up to date, of course.
Okay. Anyways, let's go. Let's continue our praise of ARM.
Praise of ARM.
Praise of ARM. Yes.
Okay. In what way do you want to continue that appraisal or appraisal?
I want to see. I want to understand what is going to happen on the market in, let's say, 3 to 5 years. I want to see. Do we have a consensus on? Are we going to see a lot more motherboards that are going to be ARM based?
Yes.
Are we going to see motherboards that are going to be ARM based? Because we know that Intel has a lot of agreements with motherboard manufacturers, trying to stop them from manufacturing too many AMDs,
I don't know,
too
but
many
if you
ARMs.
say so.
Yes, but that was a talk of a lot of conferences, and a lot of places didn't confirm, but also didn't deny that such agreements exist.
Okay, let me stop you there. Yes, and yesterday it was, or 2 days ago, it was announced that ASRock is
Yes.
making a motherboard for Ampere.
Great,
yes.
great. Yes,
So
okay.
yes, the answer to your question is yes.
When do we get one?
You can probably buy one in a couple of weeks.
Because it's going to be cheaper than buying a Raspberry Pi.
No, the motherboard is going to be cheap. The CPUs are very expensive because they are a very high number of core CPUs.
Okay. But on the other hand, Raspberry Pis have a low core count and still they're expensive.
Yeah, or you can buy them if
you can buy them.
If you can buy them. Yeah, but we're going to go back to the discussion about Ampere a little bit later. But basically, I think, here's my standpoint, and feel free to shoot it down. Like, there are two things that are going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years if you're talking about that time period. Either ARM is going to break on the desktop or not. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know.
Okay.
But what I'm sure of is that they already broke the market on the server side and the cloud side heavily, and that's going to continue, especially with the Ampere designs and stuff.
Yes,
like
I
that.
completely agree because right
Even
now
Gigabyte has designs with those things. Huawei has them for years.
I see that first with the ramping up of the machine learning, artificial intelligence, whatever, massive scalar vector designs that are more or less intended to do a lot of parallel computing, there is simply no other solution other than using ARM.
You could easily use x86 for that, but it becomes the question of whether or not that's sufficient.
The problem is that you cannot normally use because you need higher processor density, higher the core density with the lower power demands.
Yesterday, I read a paper about the viability of still developing x86 based CPUs and acceleration engines inside of them for AI/ML. There are some very, let's say, promising things coming out of that pipeline in the future as well. So I don't think the whole stack of cards is dealt yet, but it's leaning heavily towards the idea of what NVIDIA is doing.
Yes, but I think that the most promising point is the sub kilowatt per unit ability of the new Grace and Hopper technologies, because they enable you to be, I wouldn't say order of magnitude, but 5 to 7 times less power hungry for the same amount of performance. And this is something that is most important right now when we don't have enough data centers getting up and running in the near future. So exchanging the hardware is going to be the only way to grow. And having a hardware that is able to be 5 times or 7 times more energy efficient is going to be a big thing.
Hence the reason why I'm doing that research for PhD.
Yes.
Actually, you said 5 to 7 times, here comes another bit of trivia for you. How many times was the first ARM CPU after it was taped out faster than BBC Micro?
Absolutely no idea.
25 times.
Okay.
As they engineered it on a piece of paper when they did the design in computer, basically, they kind of calculated the memory bandwidth and calculated it's going to be roughly 25 times faster, which it was. Very precise engineering. A little bit of trivia.
Okay. Anyways,
Cool.
cloud computing is on the ARM side right now. Desktop is heavily leaning towards ARM. By desktop, I mean notebooks, because we need to make one thing perfectly clear. Right now, ARM is the most interesting to people who are using notebooks. Simply for the power efficiency, because people like notebooks that are able to work for 20 hours. This is the most basic human thing. I don't want to plug in my notebook.
If Apple produced a laptop based on their current ARM-based designs that had a battery that could last 40, 60, 80, 100 hours, whatever, I would pay whatever amount of money for that. I'm on the opposite end of extreme about that. I completely agree with you. It might not be something that everybody agrees with, but it would be awesome if we could do not a full day, but a whole week of work without carrying adapters around, which those things annoy the hell out of me.
Yes, I know, and this is one of those things that is normal for the new generation of the ARM-based laptops. And this is the battery life that is measured in 20 plus range of hours. And this is something what people actually require. I'm fine with people using a new design on the Apple to be able to do things more quickly. But I think that another thing is that you want to be able to be autonomous.
Yes.
And the only thing that I'm missing with the new generation of Apple laptops and all the other things is the ability to incorporate the 5G technology into the laptop itself. But this is a topic for another.
That is an excellent point. Never thought about that. That's an excellent point.
Because if you have a 15 or plus hour laptop, I want to be able to completely be dissociated from my mobile phone. I don't want to have a hotspot on my mobile phone.
And here, yeah.
Yes, so
I agree with you.
I think that it should be the whole package. So the internet should be basically included with the laptop.
That's a very, very good point. I absolutely agree with you.
Okay. What else do we have to say about ARM?
Well, I don't know. What do you think that the future designs are going to be all about? Because what happened a couple of years ago, basically Apple blindsided everybody by switching to 64-bit ARM. This was something that nobody expected, I'd say.
Yes, I think that the next thing is going to be that we are going to see even more specialized cores. And I think that we are going to see a much higher core count that is not going to make sense anymore.
You already have 128 cores in Ampere.
Yes, but it is not going to make sense anymore. You're going to have basically a spreadsheet of cores on your ARM processor. You're going to have 18 cores for this, 12 cores for this, 3 cores for this thing, and then another 4 cores for another thing, and so on and so on and so on. So basically, core count is not going to make any sense anymore.
You mean as a marketing tool or as
yes,
a
marketing
selling tool?
As a selling tool, nobody is going to be able to understand what the processor is actually doing, because
it's been like that for a couple of years now, and in a sense with GPUs as well. But
people think to understand that they understand the difference between power efficient cores and cores that are able to do more calculation versus cores that are dedicated to a single task, like Bluetooth, like wireless, whatever.
Okay.
And I think that this is going to be completely removed from the market, and people are just going to say, okay, this is an ARM processor. You're going to get a hybrid or a synthetic result for the speed, and this is going to be it.
You think that we're going to get back into tinkering?
Yes.
Basically, buying, let's say, a lot of small specialized devices, hooking them together, creating our own, some kind of a, let's say, computer, or
I see a big problem with this because when you talked about lacking options for connectivity on the newer laptops, I think this is going to get even worse. Because if you have a laptop that has an integrated ARM, 12 different specialized cores, and then a multiply of that for different cores, so a huge core count, a huge number of different specialized cores, the connectivity itself is not going to matter anymore. So they're going to just leave it behind.
me no like that.
Yes, this is just what I see as a problem. Also, I see that we are slowly, based on what Apple is doing right now, people are slowly losing their mind about laptops. Because
In which way?
right now, I have a feeling like Apple has absolutely no idea how big a laptop should be. They don't have an idea how a laptop should be behaving because they have hit a point where the speed doesn't matter anymore.
They hit that point years ago.
Yes, but today with the M1 and M2, they have hit the point where the speed actually doesn't matter anymore. Because back way then, if you had a huge laptop with I don't know 16 or 17 inch screen or 20 inch screen, you knew that this is going to have to require a power brick that is going to be bigger than the laptop. You knew that this is going to be a 300 watt plus laptop, and right now with the processor that they have, it can be a normal laptop regardless of the screen size. So they have a problem with selling you because people don't know why should they buy a more expensive laptop. And the only difference is right now is the screen.
Okay, great.
And the keyboard that is going to be awful based on all the criteria that Apple is doing with their keyboards. So these are the things that are creating a difference that gives you the idea why different models should be apart in the Apple ecosystem, and this is weird.
Okay, I agree.
We used to have a slow, small laptop that was for everyday use, and then a performance laptop for whatever you wanted to do.
Can I give you a challenge?
Which one?
Find me a keyboard,
Yes?
desktop keyboard,
Yes?
that doesn't have low profile keys, that has the keyboards that you and I like.
Okay.
So those keycaps and the background mechanism, which you can hook up to multiple computers at the same time. I'm giving you from now till the end of time. Because every single one that I was able to find, to your point,
Yes.
is low profile keyboard. You know I cannot use that because I'm going to break it probably in the first 5 minutes of using it.
As I said, you are not a normal user.
I know.
So this is completely out of the scope of the discussion, because you are going to have to either buy a keyboard that has low profile keys and sucks,
Nope.
and then do a little bit of tinkering and soldering, and then translate the
I
brains
have
of
the opposite idea.
Yes?
You're going to get me some more of the good old IBM keyboards from the
Okay.
80s, and then we're going to do tinkering and soldering and repurposing, let's say, 6502s or something, and create some Bluetooth things. I'm much more inclined to do stuff like that.
What I would just imagine is you using an iPad, a Mac Air with the Model M keyboard. That would be hilarious. But anyways,
How to break a keyboard in 2 minutes. I'm going to do it.
yes, because you're used to typewriters, you're that old. Anyways,
No, I'm a piano player. That's the problem. Not only the typewriters, although you are completely correct.
okay, let's finish this thing up.
You want to wrap it up? Okay, I agree. What do you think the future holds for ARM in the next 3 to 5 years? I said my piece. You now need to say your.
I just said, massive multi-core.
No. From the market perspective, do you think that they're going to break on desktop?
Yes. I'm going to say that in the 3 to 5 years, I see that they're going to take away. First, they're going to definitely break in on the laptop market.
Okay.
And the desktop market is going to be a tough one because the desktop market right now is increasingly shrinking. and it is almost, I wouldn't say disappearing, but it is winding down to numbers that we haven't seen for the last 5 years or so. So they're losing market share, they're losing the number of units, and I don't see that the ARM itself is going to break into the market. I see that the ARM itself is going to just go to the market, and then they're going to realize a lot of basically big market share with a smaller number of units that everybody expects, because the market is going to keep shrinking, and the ARM is going to be one of those things that is going to be keeping the market alive.
Okay, sounds reasonable.
Especially in the part of the market when we're dealing with the business computers.
What about gaming?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I see very tough times ahead of ARM for that on desktop.
I honestly don't know, because I know how simple or complicated it can be to port something to a different architecture.
Yeah, you have some experience.
And I know that porting to ARM, although all the tools are still there, is going to be a big problem for the gaming market, especially for the more complicated games, because a lot of people there still depend on understanding the hardware to the very, very, very low level.
Mm-hmm.
And them switching over to ARM is going to be a tough sell for a couple of years, because they know enough about x64 and the x86 to be able to optimize a lot of things directly. So they have a big problem with switching to new architecture.
I would kind of argue that it's a little bit less strenuous than what it used to be. And Apple ecosystem proved that a couple of years ago when they switched from Intel to ARM.
Yes, but gaming on Apple is non-existent.
No, I'm not talking about gaming now. Just the general use case. Gaming is a different topic.
Yes, but general use case, Windows has Office on ARM, has Windows on ARM. You just need the hardware, and you can create a business computer.
Soon it's going to be WinRAR on ARM.
Yes.
Integrated.
oh God. Okay.
Okay. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of That IT Show podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. And until then,
Thank you.
see ya. Bye.
Bye.